Buddy, okay. I'm Joseph.
I'm Vinayak.
And I'm Trent.
We're going to be doing the game strategy workshop for you guys. We're from Team Hazmat, by the way.
We're gonna pass out papers.
So this is, first of all, this is like something we set up, a mentor network for your team. You can just like scan this for help if you need a mentor or something. I'm going to pass out papers. On the list we have our FTC wires project. So yeah, look into those.
There you go.
Go to the next slide.
All right.
What game strategy is, it's the process of creating strategies in a robot that will allow you to score the maximum points possible. And to do this, like one of the first steps is brainstorming, so like coming up with ideas to solve like the missions, then like optimizing those ideas, so you constantly have to be working on building better ideas and figuring out how to get better on what you already have.
Talk to the mic. Yes, it is. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
And coordinating, wait, turn it up.
I can't go too much further.
Okay. And coordinating with other teams and with your teammates. Okay.
So this is our field view for this year. There's the backdrops over here, and the loading stations are over here. One thing to note is that those are across the field from each other, so you have to move across in both directions. And then your line stations are on the side with the trussing in the middle, and there's the gate in the middle of that. And then over here is the lines for your drone launching.
This is just like a view of the field again, a bird's eye view. So again, these are the landing zones. These are where the human players are. These are the two launch boxes. The backboards are up there, and the trusses are in the middle. There are also the four corner markings on the field.
Also, there's like 6 spots for pixels here. So at the beginning, there's stacks of 5 on each of those spots with the white pixels, and then in the storage zones, there's stacks of red, green, and yellow, as well as a few more stacks of white ones for the human players to introduce in the teleapp portion. And next slide.
So here are some dimensions we produced. So over here, you can see the this zones, these backstage areas go 23 and 1/8 inches out. That is interesting to know, but the real one that we are concerned with is probably going to be these, the height. So the first row you can place pixels at is 7 1/4 off, and then the maximum height you need is 29 3/4. There's a 30-degree angle from vertical for these, and they're about 35 inches tall. Here's the lines. So these are each 10 points you can get above them. So it's one's 12 and 3/8, another one's at 19, and the other one is at 25 and 3/4. So if you can get above those. And then it's 3 1/4 to these April tags for identification.
Additionally, there is a height limit of 14 for these, for all these like.
Yeah. All right. Here's the 14 inches. So it's 14 inches to the from the tile to the bottom of the pipe. If you want to go under these sides in the middle, it's 12, but it swings up in one direction. It swings up as you're going from the input to the output. So you have to figure out some way to get it open if you want to go back. The stripes are a little narrower this year than they've been in previous years, but that's just for identification. And then the landing zones, each one of these is 2 feet out from the last. So first 2 feet next to the wall is your most points, then 2 to 4 feet is 20 points, and 4 to 60 is 10 points.
So this year, it's probably going to be pretty optimal to build a shorter robot so you can get easily go through these like areas.
Also, mentioned the gaps between these poles earlier. They are wider than 18 inches, so width is not really a concern. So.
So, these are the elements of the game. So one pixel is 1.5 inches in the within the middle, and it's 3 inches wide on the outside. Mosaics are shown over there, and those are like the different structures that you can form that are legal, but you get extra points for.
So they can be all one color or a mix of the three colors. They just can't include white. So you have to be very strategic about how you're going to place your color pixels because you definitely want to get the mosaic bonus.
Also, these like pixels, they're like hexagonal, obviously, so you're gonna have to create like a good way to be able to grab these consistently because these are like a new element and it's gonna be tough.
The good thing about hexagons is you have these three pairs of parallel sides. If you wanted to create some form of claw on it, you could even use multiple pairs of claw around these and around these. And so they're pretty versatile, or you could do something without a claw and just suck them up with rollers if you wanted to, because they are thin enough. So this is a basic guide to match play. So if you've been to a competition, you know how this goes. I'm going to quickly go through it. So pre-match setup. You're going to place your robot in the field, and then press the autonomous and hit init. And then after that, you can't touch your robot other than to say to start. And then they will randomize. 3, 2, 1, go. You hit the start button. The randomization this year is on those 3 spike marks, so either left, center, or right, and that determines where you're going to place the preloaded pixels you have loaded. Both you can put one on the spike and one on the backdrop. So you're going to hit start, robots operate, and then 30 seconds later you stop, and then the transition, you pick up your controller, you switch to the teleop program. Then they say go, and then you have 1.5 minutes of regular driver controlled. So that's where you're going to end up stacking all the pixels onto the boards. And then the last 30 seconds, you can do all that still. And you can also launch your paper airplane out into the rest of the field, and then hang on the trussing, or you can park at the backstage, right?
Yeah, you can park in the backstage.
So it's generally going to be advised that you do something to park both at the end of autonomous and at the end of the game, because those are pretty easy points. But if you think you can score more points by just keep cycling pixels, that's another option. It's all something you have to weigh based on your robot's capabilities.
So this is like an example of how we create a mission matrix. We're actually going to be doing this with you all later, but so what we do is we list like all the missions in a table, and like we put like the time duration we think it will take, the amount of points you can get doing it, and the difficulty we give it like on a scale of like 1 to 3, and then we use that to calculate a final value for each mission, and using those values we decide what our priorities will be in building our robot, so we can like complete all the missions that we want to complete and get like the maximum points possible.
So here essentially what we're doing is we are taking our auto, we're multiplying it. In our chart we multiply it by difficulty, then divide by the estimated time. These are all estimations of difficulty. So this is like your gut reaction, like how difficult do you think it's going to be right now? How quickly do you think you can do the mission? These are not exact numbers. As you get exact numbers for your robot, these are going to be targets. So you target, say, we want to be able to do a auto high goal in 6 seconds. And then you would want to design your robot to do that. If you get there, great. If you don't, then you have to revise this chart. So you take your point value, divide it by the time. So that's your like points per second. So the higher number this is, the faster you can score. The lower that is, the slower you can score, and then you're not going to score as many points. So you want to do the missions. The main goal here is to do the missions that give you the most points in the least amount of time.
This is like a list of like the different missions that score different points. So like for placing pixels like in the backdrop, that's like 5 points for each pixel. And obviously the mosaics with the colored pixels is going to be really important to like get more points with those. And in autonomous, like you want to get that purple, so you want to be able to detect like which zone you're in, so that you can get the purple. I mean the yellow pixel in the right spot in autonomous. And in Italia,
It's basically just your main goal in Teleop is to put pixels on the backdrop. You score points just by putting pixels, but you can score bonus points if you do the mosaic, or if you get it above those lines, the higher you get a bonus.
And then in endgame, extra points that you can earn is the robot suspended from the rigging. So when you clamp on to the rigging and you hold on to there, and then you can also park in the backstage for 5 points.
And then your drone launch from behind the rigging. If you can get a drone, which is a paper airplane this year, that'll fly out, and then you get 30, 20, or 10 points depending on what it lands in.
So for the PreMed setup, you need your field personnel setting up the playing field as it is depicted, and also the pixel placement. So there's going to be 6 stacks of 5 white pixels on the field. There are going to be 2 pixel storage locations for each alliance, and there's 3 stacks of white pixels, 1 stack of 5 purple pixels, 1 stack of 5 yellow pixels, and 1 stack of 5 green pixels. There's also going to be a randomized task. So it's going to be 4 white pixels and 1 for each set of spike marks on the corners on the middle of the field.
And those can be replaced with your team element for added bonus points. So those are the markers to tell you where to put your other pixels during auto. Speaking of auto, during auto, if you park in the backstage, you get 5. You have 30 seconds to do any combination of these things. If you're in the backstage, so that's any part of the robot in that backstage taped off area, you get 5 points. The randomization, you get 10 points for putting the purple pixel on the same spike line as the indicator object, whether that be if you're just using the standard pixel, 10 points, 20 points if you make your own. It's definitely an advantage to make your own because you score more here, you score more points here. It's definitely an advantage, so we highly recommend that you make your own whenever. And then the yellow pixel, that's also based on the randomization. So for example, if it's randomization number 2, you're going to put the yellow pixel in the center of the backdrop. So that counts, that randomization is going to be very important this year. There's 2 missions that require you to know what that randomization is. And then pixels, you can also score just white pixels, 5 of them if they're on the backdrop, 3 of them if they are in the taped off backstage area. And these get double counted. So you score them once for autonomous and then again in teleop. So it's definitely pretty good to be able to score in autonomous because you can double your points.
Yeah, even though there's like only 30 seconds, you'll probably be able to finish like the main missions, like putting the purple one in the spike area and getting like the yellow one in the correct zone on the backdrop. So it would be advisable to like create a strategy to get to the back and score some pixels off of those stacks because they're already there at the beginning of the match.
And those stacks, by the way, those stacks are anyone can use them. So even if it's closer to the Reds Alliance's side, it's not theirs. You can still go over there. You might not want to because their autonomous is probably programmed to pick from the nearest stacks, but that just depends. So it's good to have variety. So coding a lot of different autonomous options based, and then doing scouting on your other teams is going to be very important so that you're not both trying to pick up the same stack of pixels as either your partner or your opponent.
So there's going to be basically four main parts of autonomous strategy. One of them is use cases, which is going to be the different um, the different kinds of strategy that you can use during autonomous and where you're going to go, what you're going to do. And then there's going to be zone management. Trent, want to talk about that?
Yeah, so this is an example from a long time ago now, but this game had very clear zone management, so we like to use it as an example. For example, so our path was to pick up with discs this year from here. We just went straight up on one row of the mats, so we didn't get in the partner's way. And then we also have this program where we can do this. This year it's going to be a little more tricky because you do have to manage both the giant trussing in the middle gets in your way, and there's could be a lot more crossing. So it's going to be very important to have good zone management. You don't want to use every tile on the floor to get from one side to the other. You generally want to go in as straight a line and predictable as possible, so another team could fit in. Say you're going here, and then the other team can use this space.
Another thing to consider is cooperation with your alliance teammate. This means like ask them where they're going and make sure that your robot doesn't collide with them. Obviously, avoid collisions with other alliance robots and yours. So you want to know where you're going and if it conflicts with any other path.
All right.
So the next part of the game is the Italia part. So that's when like the drivers are like actually controlling the robot with their controllers. And this is like a 120-second 120-second segment. So in this section, the human players can introduce additional pixels in the zones, like in the back, those triangles, as well as those like stacks that are already there. So what you're probably gonna do is have like one robot that's like cycling them from that triangle zone, and another robot that's like going to the stacks and like completing those stacks. And then after that, you're gonna have to be able to strategize with your partner, timing to like so that you're not like both getting to that zone at the same time, so you can efficiently score. And obviously, the priority here it would be getting those mosaics on the backdrops to maximize your points.
So you're gonna have to be very strategic. Talk to your partner. If you're gonna do, say, you want to do 3 greens on the very right side of the backdrop, you're gonna have to tell your partner if they're doing just the white cycling from the stacks. You're gonna tell them, hey, maybe not. Don't put any on the right side because I'm gonna do the 3 greens and then we can get the bonus. So, and also the order you put out the pixels is going to be very important. And something interesting is your human player is on the opposite side of the field of you, so that could get difficult. Say you want to do a purple, green, yellow mosaic, but they just keep giving you greens. And so there's going to be an element of like, you have to, the drivers and the human player have to be a very well communicated strategy beforehand. So you might have a list of like what order you would like the pixels to be put out, and pixels can be picked up 2 at a time. So you can pick up 2, take them to the backdrop, and then go back and get 2 more.
Also, because like the stations are on like completely opposite sides of the field, you're gonna want to be moving really quickly from one side to the other. But because there's like you probably can't fit 2 robots in that one spot, your alliance specific area, so you're gonna have one robot's probably gonna have to be going through the middle area. So you're gonna have to like figure that out between your partners, who's gonna be doing which side and who's gonna be doing what.
So the end game, everything in the driver control period can be still done in the end game. The end game just adds a few different things. So you can launch your drone if you're parked in. If you're parked behind the truss and stage door assembly, you can throw your drone over. If you land the closest to the wall, I'm going to draw a diagram here. So this is section 1, 2, and 3. If you land, here's the walls. So to get into this first section, you're going to have quite a high trajectory to get over this. And then if you have more shallow trajectory, you might get there or there. So it's actually an advantage to have this very high trajectory so that you get this closest area. And then you can also hang from the truss For 20 points, that's going to be very difficult, obviously, so it's worth 4 times as much as just driving over into the backstage area. Because it is so difficult, you have to design a system that can hang the entire weight of your robot, which might get kind of heavy this year, because not only do you have to pick up the pickles, you also have to have this launching mechanism if you're going to go after all the total points.
Yeah, because like the paper airplane, like it has to be on your robot throughout the whole match. So you're gonna have to be able to accommodate room for that launching mechanism as well as your scoring mechanism for the pixels. So you have to like when you're designing and coming up with ideas for your robots, you have to make sure that you like accommodate for that space, especially because you're probably gonna want to be under like that 14-inch limit.
Oh yeah, that's another big issue. So if you want to get it to the top of the boards, which are 29, 30 inches tall, you're going to have to do some kind of extending mechanism as well. And that also has to be less than 14 inches when folded up if you want to go for the most efficient traveling path. So there's a lot of different, it's about, this is a lot about costs and benefits here. So you have to weigh your options and do what makes sense. So we're going to show some tables for that too.
This is an idea for like a drone. So obviously, because you want it to be going the shortest one because that's the most points. If these are allowed, like you're going to want to have these like flaps at the end, which will allow your plane to pitch down. So you could like have a high trajectory, but like have it pitch down right away, which would allow you to get like those 30 points.
Yeah.
So penalties, there's like the main ones are like interfering with the other robot or hitting like their scoring things, but there's probably a bunch more. They're all in the game manual. We're not going to go over those because there's like so many, but you're going to want to read through all of those so that you know like what you can and can't do, because there's rules for everybody, including a human player. Like there's big issues with like human players last year, like not knowing what can cause penalties, so you have to like read through all of those.
Yeah, and a few of the big ones are holding more than 2 pixels, making contact with a robot that's suspended, and trying to block a paper airplane. You can't block the drones this year. So, and also a lot of the common penalties that they've had over the years. So, like intentionally whacking into someone's robot with the intent to do harm is still a penalty, and stuff like that just shouldn't happen.
Especially because like this year, like it's pretty split up into 2 sides, the red and the blue side. So they're probably going to be really strict on like interference with robots of opposing alliances. So you're going to want to keep that to a minimum.
Mm-hmm. So this is about how here in Wisconsin we have all traditional events this year. This is how you get into the tournament finalists. So this is how it's awarded. So ranking points. So the ranking points are from. So here's how we do it. Average ranking points, highest to lowest. So that's going to be, and then your tiebreaker 1, tiebreaker 2, and then your highest more, and then, so this is in the event of a tie. So tiebreaker point 1, tiebreaker point 2. Do we know what those are? Okay. It doesn't say. It's usually something like autonomous points scored or something like that.
All of this information will be in the game manual, so you're gonna want to read through all of it so you know like how scoring works and how to get like the top position.
Yeah. Sometimes you'll have to play an extra match. Like if they don't have enough teams, you'll be playing an extra match. That doesn't mean you get 7 competitions worth. It just means one of them just doesn't count and you won't get any points for it. But it's still in your best interest to do as good as possible, because obviously teams can see you playing and they would be more likely to pick you if they see how well you play. And also it's gracious professionalism, because you also want your alliance partner to get a higher score for their match as well.
So like robot design, this is like gonna be the ending point of like what you do. So after like you go through like the missions and figure out what your strategy is gonna be, you're gonna want to focus on robot design. So for this year with the pixels, because you're gonna be wanting to get them from the bottom and then getting them like onto those backboards, you're probably gonna want some like kind of claw, because like unlike previous years, like an intake like into your robot probably isn't going to work because of the shape of these pixels. So you're probably going to want like some kind of claw that's on like an extending like arm or something, so that you can like reach the complete range of the backboard.
There's many ways to go about it. Again, the best way to do robot design is probably to start brainstorming, come up with as many ideas as you can. Just don't care how practical or feasible they are. Just make a list, make rough sketches, and then once you have a big list of designs, you can start looking like pros, cons, how difficult is this going to be, how fast is it going to be. Difficulty and speed are your two. Speed is good. Difficulty, depending on how you're feeling, how strong your mechanical design skills are, um, could be an issue. But you just have to weigh your options, and that's really what it's all about. You're probably not going to come up with the best design your first time around, so you might have to do a few iterations on your design, making it better. If as you notice flaws as you go through the season, you make changes. So Vinayak's going to talk about your controller here.
So this is the gamepad controller that is going to be used for the robot. So it has multiple different buttons that you can use, such as the sticks for moving the robot itself, and the D-pads, which can be used for special transitions or things on the robot. There's also the buttons, the XYZ buttons that can be used to move the robot to a certain stage that it needs to use. And there's also the triggers and the bumpers on the front of the gamepad that can be used for other special movements that the robot wants to do.
That was just a general idea. You don't have to do it that way, but that was very common. Like anyway.
So another important thing is the time. So like I know it like seems like it's a lot, but it's easy to get like lose track and forget like how much time you have left. So especially during endgame, you want to make sure that you can get like all the missions out. So the coach has to be watching that and like telling the drivers how much time they have left and everything.
So you don't want to run out of time for parking, but obviously, if you think you can score more points by scoring a few 2 extra pixels rather than parking, you might choose to just keep doing pixels until the timer runs out. Or if you run out of pixels, say, or you're not very fast at placing pixels, maybe you go for parking. It's all about weighing your options and having good awareness about how much time is left and what you can do with that time. And you want to pick the thing that will get you the most points in that time.
So scouting is another really important part of tournament, like especially if you're trying to be like a captain or even through normal matches, because like autonomous, you really don't want to be running into other robots because that can like completely ruin like the points you get for that auto. So you need to like have people that are watching other robots and figuring out what their paths are so that you don't have those issues. As well as for being a captain, like you want to know who works the best with your robot. Like it might not be like the next like number 5 or whatever. Like it has to be someone that works really well with your robot and like can meet your needs.
I myself have personal experience with like scouting being really important. One time, we were lacking in scouting, and this caused us to in our match to qualify for the finals. We ended up losing because the enemy robot rammed into us, and we didn't scout that they were doing that. That they were going so fast and far out into the field and autonomous. This did cause us to lose the match, and that just shows how important scouting is.
Yeah, so a few different things you can do to scout. You can watch the competition live streams. You can watch them over after the competition, and you can take notes and look at what their autonomous paths are and also what their general strengths and weaknesses as a robot are. You can, when you get to the tournament, they'll give you a list. We recommend taking this list and then like just checking off to make sure you know everyone who's in that tournament. And you can go around into the pits early in the morning and ask them. Now, in the morning, teams tend to be very optimistic, I'm going to say. They're going to try and sell you on their team. So, you know, they might say they're better than they might actually be. So that's why it's good in the afternoon to look and see, okay, what is their actual performance looking like? Where are they going in autonomous? Would we be good partners? And then if you are ending up either wanting to be picked or picking teams for the playoffs, you can use that data you gathered over the day. So a few tools to help you are like you can ask them to draw their paths on game fields. You can ask them what they prefer to do. So, for example, would they prefer picking up the white only tiles and putting them straight onto the boards, or would they prefer to take the colorful ones and make mosaics, or and then are they capable of things like holding on or parking?
So on the tournament day at the beginning, there's going to be like a field and game inspection where like the leaders of the tournament will just make sure that your robot is like legal with all the specifications that are in like the game manual. So you're going to have to do like a physical like test as well as a test on the field to make sure that your systems are working. And after that are the qualification matches. Usually compete in around like 5 to 6, and after that is like the playoffs where the top 4 teams pick like other teams to be on their like alliances, and after that is the awards. So one really important thing is like reflection. So after like your competitions, you might like realize that you didn't like perform to like where you wanted to be. So after that, like you have to always keep an open mind on how you can improve, because like no design is perfect. Like you always have to be ready to change up to like be able to meet like where you want to be.
So a simple idea of reflections is what went well, what should we improve? So your first meeting after the tournament, obviously, if you did well in this tournament, go congratulate yourself, maybe have a party, go out for ice cream, something like that. And then once you, because it is a big accomplishment competing in a tournament, like it's really a lot of work, no matter how well you do in the tournament, it is a big task. So reward yourself, and then go ask yourself, okay, what are we proud of? What went right? Like, say, I don't know, our autonomous detection and placing of the tiles in the correct detection. That was really well. And then, ask yourself, okay, what wasn't great? Like, ooh, our teleop was not very fast, or our paper airplane throw wasn't very accurate. And then take those and make changes to your robot and improve upon that for the next time.
You can see we had a really big change. We felt that our first robot, which is this robot right here called Wiz, we felt that it didn't like meet our standards of a world-class robot that could perform and do really well in the matches. So we switched over to our second robot, Khalifa. That's the name, Wiz Khalifa. We felt that was much faster and much better and suited our team's goals.
Obviously, this is a super extreme idea. You don't have to build a new robot for a tournament, but making little improvements, like we've improved multiple things in both of these designs, like specifically claw designs. We've improved even aesthetic things, because they do have, that could be consideration for you, or fabrication of your own parts if you want to get into that. That can be really good for your design award criteria. Here's just a few pictures from a few years ago. This is our pit. This pit is way bigger because that was in COVID year, so we were able to set out fields. They do have practice fields at the tournaments, but this year we had the space to bring our own mini practice field. So you'll normally have a table over there with some awards, and then maybe a slideshow, some poster board, something to give teams information about yourselves. Here's just us having fun. It's very important to have fun at the tournaments. And so now we're going to go into the game point analysis. Everyone should have one. So what we're going to do, so the objective of this is to evaluate each mission and look at it in a vacuum and say 3 things about it. How easy is it? How many ports is it? How much time do you think it's going to take? So the easiest one is point scoreable. You can put that in this category. This is directly from the game manual. This is the easiest part. So if you want to write in point scoreable for every mission, we've divided it into 3 sections, one for autonomous missions, one for general teleop missions, and then another section for endgame.
So we're gonna quickly just like go through a few with you. So Trent, you want to do this?
Yeah, sure. So navigating, robot parked in backstage. that's really quite simple. So that's going to be very easy. Oh, okay. So 3 are really easy. And then estimated time, depending on where you are at the field, call it seconds.
That would probably take around like 2 seconds.
2 seconds. So you can do that if you have 2 seconds left and that depends on where you are at the field, but average of 2 seconds. So we're going to take this. We're going to multiply the first 2 common. So that's going to give us 15, and then we're going to divide it by its time. So that's going to give us a 7.5. So this is a score. The higher this is, the easier the emission is, and the more points it is to score, and the less time it takes. So you want this number to be as big as possible.
All right, now let's get some of your suggestions for the next one. Placement on pixel placed under Alliance backdrop. What do you guys think is going to be the easiness? See your random numbers.
So this is not the random. This is just the taking it from the stack and putting it on your backdrop. How difficult? 1, 2, 3.
What do you guys think?
Like 2 might slip off at some point, but
You're going to have to build a pretty robust mechanism for this, but you don't have to do things like randomization, which could pose a difficulty. So that's probably going to be a 2.
What do you guys think the estimated time is going to be? Anyone else?
So yeah, the time's going to be from the time that you can pick up the pixel in the storage area. So those are going to be in the stacks, and then drive across the field and then place it. How long do you think that might take? 2 seconds. 3 seconds. I'm going to give that a little more time. Anyone other suggestions? Yeah? Yeah, probably about that, depending on your speed of outtake, speed of driving. So, Vinayak, if you want to do the math for us.
What is 2 times 5? 10. 10 divided by 5, 2.
Yeah, so that's going to be a 2. So from this, we can tell, yeah, parking in the backstage is going to be probably something we're going to do. This one, if you want to score a lot of points, you can get to it, but it's not the easy low-hanging fruit that are like, obviously, totally we need to do this.
So for the next one, pixels placed in Alliance's backstage. Any other answers for what the easiness is going to be?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's just going to take time. You could literally drag it with a snowplow and put it in your backstage. So not very difficult. That's probably going to be a 3. 3, and then I'm going to give that, we gave the writing the pixel and then putting it on the backboard a 5. I'm going to give this 4, because you don't have to outtake it. So 4.
You also have to keep in mind that these can also be like repeated. So it's not just looking at it and say, oh, the second one, it looks like it's not that good of a score, so let's not do it. Then you also have to consider that's the most, I think that's like the place where you scored the most points in this
That's
game.
going to be one of the most repeatable actions. So you can do these 2 things many times. So you're not going to get this. That's 1.5. No, never mind. I added. Not for.
Okay, we'll just do like a few more. So like for the purple pixel, that's negative on the spike mark, so that's like on the floor. Does anybody have a suggestion on how easy they think that would be? Because like that you have to like do the detection.
Canadians over here. Over there.
Okay. Because that's like, I'm gonna give that like a 2. 1 because of the detection. So let's give that a 1.
And as for how much time that's going to take, your spike mark is right in front of where you're going to start. So that's probably, if you choose to do detection, that's probably going to be the first thing you're going to do. You can probably get that done within 1 or 2 seconds. So 1.5 seconds. And then, so we have 10 divided by 1.5, which is 3, a little over 3 ish. And no, 6, a little over 6. Yeah.
So like as you can see, this is like another really important one. So as you go through this like on your own, if you do something like this, you can just like go through, see what will give you like what the highest values are, and prioritize your missions based on that. And using these values is how you can create a robot design by like using these and creating a robot design that like meets the needs and allows you to complete the missions that you want.
Yeah, and then you can do the same thing with robot design. So you can list possible possibilities. So, for example, if you want a system to pick up an object or pick up a pixel and put it on the backboard, you could use a very similar system like this. You can do a how difficult is it going to be, and then consider how much time is it going to take, and then how easy is it for the drivers to use, and then you can make decisions like that. And that's something that judges really like to see. This is all part of the engineering design process. So this is how you decide what you're going to make and how you decide what the best design for your robot is going to be. So this is something that judges love to see because it shows that you're using logic and reasoning and using a design process to help you decide what you're doing.
Yeah, so going on what he said, we highly recommend that you fill the rest of the sheet out in your own time once you get back. And this is, as he said, really beneficial, and the judges really like this a lot. Any other questions?
You can have any questions like about things like scouting or other specific game strategy advice too, not just about the decision-making matrix.
We have a lot of resources available on our website, FTC Wires, such as scouting sheets or software platforms that help with just planning and resources.
Yeah, so
This is like a thing that we want. So our goal through Wires is like to create an amazing experience for all like first teams, so that everyone can like compete to the best of their ability. So like we have so many resources on here to help new teams like through anything. We have like robot stuff as well as like business stuff to help you through that. We have like video series. We have guides for how to create a good engineering notebook and portfolio. We have like an Instagram, and we have like connections to a bunch of different teams. You can reach out to anyone, and we just like have so many resources out here that can help you.
yeah, so some other good websites we found are listed here. So Game Manual Zero, that's a lot about everything about a team. So there's stuff about business, there's stuff about robot design, there's stuff about game strategies, stuff about programming and everything. And then if you do have any questions, FTC has a really nice Discord, and everyone on there is super nice, super willing to help you. So if you have any more specific questions that you can't find an answer for online, ask them there. Someone will probably give you a good answer. Oh,
Right, and that should be everything that I covered.